That's the close of community affairs.
At this point, I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and our streaming audience. Welcome to the February 10, 2025 City Council regular meeting. And I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll, and then we'll officially appoint a temporary clerk for this evening's activities, but I'm going to ask her to call the roll initially.
Bennett,
Here.
Payne,
Here.
Barnes,
Here.
McKeever,
Here.
Dement,
Here.
Preston,
Here.
Pearl,
Here.
Creed,
Here.
Nickerson.
I would now entertain a motion to appoint Lauren Baker to act as clerk during this session of the Chiillicothe City Council. A motion by Ms. Payne, second by Ms. Bennett, and I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Now that we have a clerk appointed, Ms. Nickerson let me know that she couldn't be here this evening, and I would entertain a motion to excuse her from this session. Motion by Mr. Dement, second by Ms. Preston, and I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ms. Nickerson is excused, and I would ask Mr. Creed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to RC 121-22G2 to discuss the possible purchase of property.
Is there a second to the motion? Second, Ms. Bennett. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We are in executive session. We will return momentarily. we're back from executive session. Last time, I had to get the assistance of Councilman McKeever to kind of raise his voice to get, but I brought this with me. So there, now we've got some order in this operation. So the minutes are not available from the last meeting, so we'll have to defer a review of those until our next council meeting. And with that, I'm going to move on to the report of committees. First is the Development Committee. Mr. Dement.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Development Committee held a meeting at 6:15 earlier tonight and discussed two items. The first one is 25013, which is authorizing the mayor to issue a request for proposal for administration of 25 and 26 CDBG programs. We agreed to move that forward to the law director's office. And the second one was 25002, which is accepting and appropriating the Appalachian Grant Award for the park improvements. And we will move that forward to the law director's office as well. And development has nothing on tonight's agenda. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, Engineering Committee.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Engineering Committee met this evening. We had two meetings, one in reference to 25010 is the appropriation of funds to purchase two traffic controllers for North Bridge Street. Currently, there are two controllers on North Bridge Street that are antiquated and basically not to the standards of the Ohio Department of Transportation. So as we go into the new, the repair, the major overhaul of North Bridge Street that's going to happen, it would be nice to have these. The units are about $5,000 a piece. The amount requested was $11,000. The committee voted unanimously to request legislation be made for this item. Next item was 25015. ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, wants to pave Route 50 or Eastern Avenue, as we probably know it, and it will be going through the city from South Watt Street through to the city eastern line, which is near Douglas Street, I believe. They just wanted an agreement that the city would give them permission to complete this project. It's not a request for funding or anything of that nature. And the committee did vote unanimously to forward it on to the law director for legislation. We have nothing on tonight's agenda, and so I am finished with my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance and Technology Committee, Mr. Prohl.
Well, the Finance and Technology Committee has a couple items on tonight's agenda, but I am going to defer to Mr. Creed, who was working on a little bit of this on my behalf while I was out with my heart attack. So I'm glad to be back, and I appreciate everybody holding the fort down while I was gone. So, Mr. Creed, if you would like to report on those for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. So Finance has three items on the agenda tonight. The first one is item number 3, and it is up for a third read, but we're going to, and this is the street levy renewal. At the appropriate time, I'm going to make a motion that we amend the language to the general election, November 4th, 2025, and that we remove the emergency language. And then I'll also ask that we not read it tonight so we can get a clean copy of it back for the next meeting, and then we'll have three full reads on it to make sure that everything is done appropriately with that. Next, item number 5 is appropriating $276,000 and change received from our insurance company and was used towards the repairs of the roof down at the old Pepsi plant. Public Works Building is what I'm wanting to call it now. It's from back, what was it, a year ago, Luke? Year, 2 years ago, when the roof blew off of it. So we're just now getting that money back so that we can go ahead and make those repairs, or the repairs have been made. We're just getting reimbursed for those costs. Item number 6 is an ordinance appropriating $3,165,832.48 for the purpose of continuing handling of brought forward purchase orders from the year 2024 and declaring an emergency. So these are things that were purchase orders that were done last year, and we're carrying forward into this year. Those projects were not completed, were not completely paid for. So in order for departments to be able to continue with those operations, get those things done at the appropriate time, we'll ask to waive the 3-read rule on that as well. That concludes finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Creed. And I just want to say we're all happy that you're back, Mr. Prohl. Very, very happy. Next, Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We did have a committee meeting earlier this evening for item 25-002 or assignment 25009. And this is establishing seasonal pay scales for summer employees or seasonal employees. We looked at the pay scales from last year, and we did make quite a few increases on those last year because they were very low. We did not make any decisions this evening. We decided to have a second committee meeting to discuss these in detail, and probably the hours as well, or the maximum hours that could be worked on each of these or for each department. So we will have a second committee meeting before any decisions are made, and we have it on the ballot, but we have plenty of time for that. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Next would be Parks and Rec Committee, but Ms. Nickerson is not here. And if no members of that committee have a report, hearing none, I will move on to the Safety Service Committee. Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing on the agenda tonight, but we do have 3 committee assignments. First one is 25-003. This is to review, modify, and approve proposed street changes related to the GP roadway plans. With this one, we're going to do a review session on this. We'll be able to bring in American Structure Point administration to talk about proposed changes within the park and also around the park area. We feel that's very important that we get public input into that as we make those decisions. We want to make sure that we do it properly, take safety concerns into account. So that is being pushed out till we can have that review session, hopefully within the next month. Next assignment was 25-004, and this was to accept and appropriate funds from the Ohio Attorney General's office for professional training in the police department. It's a grant for a little over $37,000, and the committee voted to approve that, and that should be on the next agenda. The next one is 25-016, and this is to accept and appropriate funds from an anonymous donor. This was $10,000 donated to the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, and the committee did approve that, and that should be on the next agenda as well. That concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Utilities has nothing on the agenda for tonight. However, we did have a committee meeting regarding 25008, which is the authorization for appropriate city official to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission grant funds for 2026 and accept the grants if awarded. The committee voted to move that forward to the law director's office. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have no items on the agenda tonight. However, we did have a committee meeting this evening on 2 items. The first item was 25-006. It was a transfer of appropriated transit capital funds that was approved by the committee and will move forward for legislation. We also had 25-014. It's authorization for the mayor to file applications and proposals with the Department of Transportation. This is a yearly renewal, and that was also approved and will move forward. That is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The nonprofit, the third reading for the Humane Society and for the Hope Partnership Project. It's the second reading for Community Action. Earlier this evening, we had a committee meeting, and we have 3 more that we're working on getting to the agenda for the next meeting for Assistant House, the Hope Clinic, and the NOBS group. And we are continuing talking about 24117 about the camps in the community. And that's all.
Thank you. Moving on to reports of officials, Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. No news from me tonight.
Well, the auditor isn't here, so she's next, but we do have her able assistant here who has some information for us.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. The auditor is not available to attend tonight's council meeting this evening, but has requested me to report on her behalf. Item 6 on the agenda is the carryover PO request. It is important to waive the 3-read rule this evening. These items are to pay for projects that were approved in the 2024 budget, but had not been available to pay at year end as projects were being completed. It is important to get this approved tonight so we can pay invoices that we have been receiving this year. The general fund carry forward is $4.9 million. This does take into account the carryover PO request, so this amount reflects the aforementioned request. The auditor will be announcing a year-end review session once she has confirmed the final numbers from the city treasurer. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact Auditor Spetnagel or our office. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the Law Director, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any affirmative reports on anything, but I'm here to discuss and answer anything that I can, hopefully. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to audience participation. Any person wishing to address the council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I will give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Renner. I live at 98 Douglas Avenue here in Chiillicothe, Ohio. I think it would be really helpful if anyone was willing to table the urban camping issue, just following the guidance of Julie Bolin, to get all the community leaders together and community resource providers together to have those conversations. So I would have you consider, if anyone's willing to do that, we could table that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jason Link, 17 Mead Drive. Good to see you all here this evening. Thank you to whoever's responsible for getting the agenda posted on the City Council Facebook page. Will that be where it's posted moving forward?
That's the intention, yes.
Okay. It had been on the City of Chiillicothe Facebook page. So I was just trying to clarify.
Just so you know, we're working on the Facebook page for City Council,
Sure.
and I'm working with the administration to get all that taken care of. So
just so it's clear,
we'll let you know
where to find that. So I wanted just to ask if City Council received any financial rationale from the mayor's office about the 0.2% renewal tax increase.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can send some of that to you. I'll get your email after this.
Well, you should have my email. I've sent you an email, so that would be
Okay.
helpful. I've requested that information because I think would probably be helpful information, not just for me, but for anybody else who's interested in paying taxes here in the city. So
understood.
I'd appreciate that. And I'll be interested to see exactly how you go about handling the legislation that's there in front of you. If I understood you correctly, we're going to take the February language out, put November language in, take away the emergency language, right? So we're still of the mind that the city is in need of that money to be able to do the things that the city needs to do. Well, so if that's the path we're taking, then it really raises concern about $50,000 for the Humane Society. I hear some other expenditures for some other organizations. I like the Humane Society. I like disc golf that was approved last meeting. It just seems a little incongruent to me that we have money that we can give away to worthy or unnecessary, depending on how you might look at it, but we're going to continue to ask the taxpayers for more money. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. If we've got money to give away to the Humane Society, but we're going to need to continue to ask for more money from the taxpayers. That just seems a little incongruent to me. I would strongly recommend that this board vote down the item about the tax increase. You certainly have the ability to do that. You don't even have to send it to the taxpayers, but this board has the ability to do that, and that's my recommendation to you. I certainly recognize that maybe I'm the only one up here talking about taxes, but this is important stuff. And we need to be making decisions that is good for the city. 4.9 carryover. My understanding that's about 2 months worth of operating capital. That's what Crystal Spednagel told me. That's the minimum that is recommended to be carried over. So it doesn't sound like the city's flush. Okay, so that would lead to having a tax increase, but then we turn around and give money to disc golf, the Humane Society, to Assistance House, wherever. Again, I just encourage you to think about all the implications of those dollars being spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Van Voris. I live at 281 Constitution Drive, and I would like to also speak to the point 2 that you're considering. I thank you, council members, and Mayor Feeney and all others present for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the point 2 tax renewal. The funds that are received from this tax are placed and earmarked in a category all by itself and solely used for the city's streets and road improvements. It brings in money that we know where it's going, and it's only used for that purpose. Grants for the city, also to match funds with the Ohio Department of Transportation, are also taken out of that. That's all means a lot, those grants. And so I think that you should keep that in consideration. This is a needed tax, and it's should be considered as a continuation for the citizenry. It's a small tax and needed. It was needed in 2016, which I was still alive then. So I worked on that, and I feel like it's that, with the past winter and the damage that's been done to our roads and our streets, that we need to consider that keeping that as earmarked. There's been talk about taking that out of the general fund. Well, generally practice is that indicates that the minimum is a 2-month, like Jason said, to carry over. Well, if we have to go back and take the money out for streets and roads, I think that would pretty well deplete a lot of the kinds of things that we're able as citizens and city council, the city of Chiillicothe to do. I've known this council, mayor, and the auditor to be honest and financially responsible to the citizens of Chiillicothe. Our city auditor is well qualified, as are council members, and I feel that the need to renew this measure, and I trust their judgment. As senior citizens don't really have to pay that tax either. So as a senior citizen myself, I feel like that's something that we should encourage our seniors to do and to support our city by organizing to see its passage. We are now a World Heritage Site, and I feel that as we continue to look toward the future, this money will continue to be needed. Perhaps working together and keeping our town up to date will enhance our growth. Let's just all work for passage of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Stokian, 384 East Water Street. I hope that the anti-public camping ordinance gets tabled. If it doesn't, I encourage you to vote so that it does not pass. I want to echo what Tara Williams said, that we don't want to make it easier. I understand the law director saying that this is a lighter punishment or consequence for people, but we don't want to make it easier to criminalize people who are already at the bottom. Every measure has already failed them. So the last time I spoke before this council, I laid out 9 actionable steps that could be taken to address homelessness in a way that balances compassion with public safety. Tonight, I want to take a step back and ask if the systems we have are working, which we've heard from so many organizations that it's an ongoing issue, and we have lots of things that are working, places where we could improve if we had more funding. Homelessness is not going to go away. It's always going to be an ongoing issue. From time to time, the public might see a more visible evidence of homelessness, but that doesn't mean that the systems that we already have are not working. We heard from the mayor, and I think it was Officer Myers, that a lot of the resources we have are already working, and we have a system and we just need to keep working it and fortify it. Homelessness is always present, and when it becomes visible, it should serve as a reminder for us to check whether we have enough resources and renew our ongoing effort. A rise in visible homelessness should not be met with reactionary enforcement. It should be met with proactive solutions. I recognize that cleaning up after homelessness encampments costs the city money, but the cost of enforcement and cleanup and legal proceedings tied to criminalizing homelessness often outweighs the cost of funding real solutions. The question is not whether encampments should be cleaned up. It's how we reduce the need for them in the first place. Sweeps and citations do not eliminate homelessness. They only move people from one area to another, increasing costs without addressing the root cause. We cannot enforce our way out of homelessness. This ordinance does not create housing. It does not address the factors that lead people to live on the street. It does not ensure that people experiencing homelessness have somewhere to go, only that they cannot stay where they are. Where then are they supposed to go? If this ordinance must move forward, I urge the council to commit to more than just enforcement. Track its impact, measure whether it reduces homelessness or simply relocates it. Report back on how many individuals receive actual support versus how many receive citations or are pushed to less visible areas. And most importantly, do not lose sight of what actually ends homelessness: housing. Let's make sure that our policies reflect a real path forward and not just a reshuffling of the problem. Thank you.
My name is the Reverend Terry Williams. I live at 47 East Main Street here in the city of Chiillicothe, and I want to start off by apologizing to Mr. Creed. I missed your committee meeting earlier today because I had other obligations, but I am concerned particularly about assignment 25-016, and that is the appropriation, the acceptance and appropriation of an anonymous donation. We've run into this before here at council back in 2013, and there are some big concerns about taking anonymous money from city council. Particularly, you as council members are tasked by the Ohio Ethics Commission with making sure that you do not have an unlawful interest in a public contract. You cannot fulfill that duty if you don't know where that money is coming from. And the fact is, even if it weren't unlawful, it's really not a good practice, in my mind, to take anonymous dollars in this fashion, particularly given the fact that public money ought to be spent for the public good, And the scrutiny about whether or not that's spent for the public good rests primarily with the taxpayers and the voters. I would encourage you, even though you've passed this out of committee, particularly 25-016, it's going to have to come in front of this body. I would encourage you to either send it back to committee to rework it or vote it down and ask the individual to come forward publicly, because accepting anonymous money is a really difficult thing. I would refer you particularly to the Ohio Ethics Commission resource that they provided me when I contacted them. My memory's not that good, so I had to call and say, I heard about this a few years ago. We had some resources, and they said, we have a new opinion. The advisory opinion information sheet number 2023-01 gives really good information about how donations to government entities have to be received. One of the key provisions of receiving that money is that agency officials and employees cannot have official actions or decisions on a person or company's contributions or based upon their failure to contribute. That is to say, when you take that money in, you cannot already have a purpose designated for that money unless you have some kind of discussion or dialogue. And when that money is received, those have to happen in two separate functions. There has to be an acceptance of a donation and then a decision separately about how that money's laid out. You don't know if it's an anonymous donor, who that person is, what their businesses are, and whether or not you're connected with them. And furthermore, you don't have an idea of how you can independently associate your decisions as a part of this council if a person comes and says, I'll give you $10,000, but only if you use it how I want it to be used. That is improper according to that opinion. I'd encourage you, reach out to the law director's office. I know Mr. Miller is certainly not available to be able to do that on the fly here. He's good, but nobody's that good. Reach out to the law director's office, have a conversation with him, particularly about the ethics committee, and please don't get us into the habit of accepting anonymous money, because at the end of the day, you can't really take the anonymous money. It's got to be on a printed record somewhere. Somebody's going to be able to find out. I appreciate it.
Amy Fitton, 333 West 5th Street. I was here at the last council meeting about the homeless issue, and the only thing new that I heard this week was the concern about the parks and the dumpings, which is a legitimate concern. My concern is that I don't see how this ordinance would solve that problem. I don't see how that would solve that problem. What I did hear from last week to this week was lots of great resource people coming out, sharing their thoughts, their concerns, their resources. I did a lot of personal research, and I'm just really proud of our community and all the things that we've done and all the people that have networked together to address this issue. And I guess I just want to second and third and fourth that issue, or that suggestion to table this and to go along with Julie Bolin and create this panel where we can all get together, all the people and all the resources, and come up with some real solutions for homelessness that will actually have a real sustainable solution to the problem, instead of, as I said before, just kind of another step back, another roadblock for them to have to come over. And I just and maybe if you could explain it to me, like how you think this would be a solution to the homelessness problem, then maybe I could accept it better. But I just think we're already headed in a really great direction as a community with our resources. And I think the real answers lie with just continuing to network and get everybody on the same page and see what we can do together. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Malinix, 335 Vine Street. I just wanted to talk about the homeless issue real quick. I don't know if any of you have ever been approached by a homeless person and told to, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know. I got kicked out of this place. I got kicked out of that place. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. And it's freezing cold outside and they're asking you, what do I do? Where do I go? You know, and you try to give them contact certain people in the community, and there's nothing that, you know, was told to me that I could do for this person. And I had to leave that person knowing it was cold outside, you know, knowing it was cold, that they were going to be on the street. And that hurts because I want to be able to help our community. I want to be able to help the people in the community. And I wasn't able to do that day. That's, I mean, last time somebody said, what if that was somebody you knew? But just leave you with this, what if it was you? And I don't want to be disrespectful in saying that. But thank you.
Thank you. No one else wishes to speak. We'll move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before the council this evening? Hearing none, we would normally have petitions and correspondence. Since the clerk is ill, she can't report on that at this particular meeting, although I have had some correspondence with, I know with Reverend Link and some folks on a couple of issues, but they all relate to the same things that we've talked about today. And with that, I would move on to new business. Is there any new business to come before council? One item that we need to address is there are a couple of appointments. I sent the information out to everyone for the Downtown Redevelopment District, Ms. Richmond and Harper. And I would entertain a motion to approve those appointments. Motion by Mr. Dement, second by Ms. Bennett. And I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Those appointments are approved. The final thing that I need to bring up as new business is that apparently with the pump house doing their renovations, there's been some difficulty trying to come up with the lease that is in place for the facility. And I want to be sure that this council moves to review that to make sure we get in place any documents that are necessary. I'll try to get something out to city council and to the public so that you can see what that is, so that we can move to get that finalized. We went back and there are some documents back into the 1970s. Some of the folks in here don't even know what that means back in the 1970s. I happen to. But we do need to get some things taken care of, and it may be that we'll look to a special meeting or something just to address that particular issue so we can move it along. Final thing I'll say is during our committee meetings today, I said that I would call a review session so that we can talk about the legislation that deals with camping, public camping. I intend to do that. I'll try to contact just to get a feel for availability of individuals so that I don't just pick a date or time that's good for me, but try to set up a review meeting sometimes that's not right before city council meeting, so we've got some time to actually go into the issues and have some full discussion, because I do think that is important. Is there any other new business to come before council? Mr. Prohl.
I believe Mr. Creed was going to make a motion to not read the item about the, which is item number 3, which is dealing with the levy. Was that correct?
Yes, I was going to do that after we do the amendment.
Oh, okay.
I'll let him.
This would be an appropriate this would be an appropriate time for you to
do both?
propose any motions that you would like to propose.
Okay. So item number 3, the street safety levy, I would make a motion to amend the language that it be held on November 4th, 2025, and that we remove the emergency language.
I'd second that.
And I assume that would apply to anything in the legislation that makes a reference to that particular date, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So we have a motion and a second. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson, not here. Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The resolution is amended, and now we can move to the next motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we not read the street levy item number 3.
Is there a second? Mr. Dement, any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The item will not be read this evening, and we'll now move on to other legislation.
Item number 1 on the agenda is a third reading of an ordinance appropriating $50,000 from unappropriated general funds for the Ross County Humane Society's Animal Care and Adoption Center project and declaring an emergency.
The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 2 on the agenda is a third reading of an ordinance appropriating One Ohio opioid settlement funds in the amount of $40,000 to the Hope Partnership Project.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 4 on the agenda is a second reading of an ordinance appropriating One Ohio opioid settlement funds in the amount of $50,000 to the Ross County Community Action Commission.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 5 on the agenda is a first reading of an ordinance appropriating $276,050.65 received from the Public Entities Pool of Ohio for use toward repairs to the roof at city-owned property located at 400 East 7th Street and declaring an emergency.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance.
Item number 6 is the first reading of an ordinance appropriating $3,165,832.48 for the purpose of continuing the handling of brought forward purchase orders from the year 2024 and other brought forward amounts to be put on the books of the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio for the year ending December 31st, 2025 and declaring an emergency.
President Shoemaker,
Mr. Creed,
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
is there a second? Second, Mr. Prohl. The clerk will call the roll relative to waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will now call the roll on the ordinance itself.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Pearl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. There's no other business to come before City Council. However, I do want to thank Lauren for stepping in, and I hope that Kennedy gets feeling better soon, but I appreciated the fact that she didn't bring her illness here to us tonight. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Ms. Bennett, second by Ms. Payne. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett. Yes. Payne.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Pearl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
I think she pulled one on me. That was tough.
Good. Can I pick your brain? Because Julie Lambert's got me like freaked out to make sure I fill out my paperwork right.